Hey guys, hi there, Ryan Hamer here. Hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk to you guys about when you pull up your credit report, what exactly are you looking for? What's the first thing that you should look for? So I always say when you pull up your credit bureau report, first start looking to see whether your name is correct. Make sure your address is correct. Then you also want to make sure that all the details about you, personal identifying details, are correct. Like, are any of the addresses wrong? Is it your current address do they have your current address, or do they have an old address? And whether you change that, if say it's incorrect, for example, do you change it right away? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you need to send them a letter to say, yeah, that's not the correct address, right? So these things are important to note. So you get a piece of paper and you note everything down, right? So you move from your address and you start looking at your revolving accounts. You start looking, and that's your credit cards and stuff like that, lines of credit, and you start looking at your installment accounts. Are they all up to date? Are they reporting on time? Are they accurate? Because sometimes you can have a credit card that only reports to one credit bureau, or maybe what that credit card company does is they report sporadically. So that means you might see a report 3 months ago. They might have reported that you had a payment 3 months ago, and you've been paying every month, using your card, paying it every month and stuff like that, and you don't see that it's accurate. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Then as you go down through the collection section, you check to see whether there's any debts there that aren't yours. Doesn't matter whether they're current or not. If you see a car payment there for a Lamborghini that you don't have, then obviously, that's something you need to look into to get sorted out. Secondly, you'll want to go to the collection section of your credit bureau report and see if there's anything there. Hopefully there's nothing there. So then you look at the score. What everybody else does is they look at the score first, and then they wonder, well, what the heck, what's going on? But you got to look at your credit bureau report as a whole. And once you understand what's there, what's reporting, what's reflected there, then you can make the necessary adjustments. Now, one of the most important things to look at on your credit bureau report, like say, for example, you do have a collections item on your credit bureau report. This is or not even just the collections. What if you had an item on your credit bureau section, on your installment or your revolving section that constitutes its credit history? So say you had an old account, like a bank account or something like that, a line of credit or something, and say they closed that account. The bank closed that account. It should be reporting as zero, as well as you want to look at the date of last payment. The date of last payment is so important because that is what you are going to use as your benchmark, right? So you look at that date of last payment, so for example, this video is being filmed in 2022, right? So you want to go back to say, was it 2016? And you want to say, all right, listen, I'll count 6 years forward. You know what I mean? So if you count 6 years forward from 2016, 2017-ish, right? Around there, then you know that, hey, that particular debt should be coming off of my credit bureau report. So then you ask yourself a couple of questions. Okay, wait. I've been getting phone calls from collections companies regarding this particular debt, and I've done the math here. I've done my credit math, and I know that 6 years from the date of last payment is, just for an example, say it's August. So if you know it's August, then it doesn't make any sense for you to be picking up the phone or responding to these creditors. Because if you saw my other video where I say that if you pay off a collection, the derogatory information is still going to be on your credit bureau report. Okay? So if you're paying off that collection, you're doing it literally for your own peace of mind. Unless you get that item removed, unless the collection agency agrees to remove the item from your credit bureau report, right? So getting back to the date of last payment, You pay that date. You look at that date of last payment, the date you last paid, and it was 6 years ago. So if you know sometimes within this year, this item is supposed to drop off, it's going to be removed by the credit bureau from the history as well as from the collection section if it is in collections. So if it's not in collections and it's just out there, then what you want to do is you don't really want to deal with that collection company, because if you do that, then what might happen is they might report it, and it might be reported as paid, and it might end up on your collection section. So if you want to just wait, let it drop off, and then you do whatever you got to do. If you need to apply for a loan or something or what have you, you do it in that period of time. When you only apply for things, and that's another thing. I'm just giving you bonuses, sort of deviating from what I originally want to talk to you guys about as it comes up in my head. You only apply for things when you truly need them. And you only apply for things when you don't really need them. So I just gave you two contradicting pieces of advice, and I'm going to explain that. You don't apply for things, so there are caveats. The caveat is you don't apply for things unless you really need them, and unless you have the credit capacity and credit score to do that, where it's not going to be affected. Your score is not going to drop dramatically. So, what do I mean by that? There was an old commercial where these two old guys were sitting down. They said, the banks are more likely to lend you money when you look like you don't need it. And it's true. If you have a bunch of bills and you're paying them off, you have certain debts and you're paying that just fine, whatever, and you pay that off, and then you don't need any debt or what have you, you'd be surprised at how the banks are going to be offering you things when your credit score is good, your utilization is low on all your cards, and it's amazing how things work out that way. But then when you really, really need something, banks look at your debt to income ratio and they say, oh, well, you've got too much debt going on here, so you might seem desperate. It's just like the bar scenario. If you're a guy at a bar, and if you are so eager to run up after the females and stuff, they're gonna smell it. They're gonna smell the desperation off you. You're gonna get out of here, barfly. So and it's just like guys too. If a guy feels like a woman is pressuring him too much, then he's gonna like back off a bit. And so it's just the same when it comes to getting loans and stuff like that. Your profile and your approach is so important. Okay? I don't want to see you guys running off just because you got your credit score up past 700, and you start applying for everything wildly. You gotta let your credit profile season. You gotta let your good credit score season. Right? So just because you have a good credit score, you just got it yesterday, you can't run to the store and start applying for cards, or go online and start applying for cards. You got to let your profile season a little bit. You got to be noticed. You got to wait to be noticed. You got to wait to be picked for the team. I mean, it depends on what your credit score is. I mean, when you reach a certain number, a certain level, it doesn't matter. I mean, you're going to get good. You're not really going to get rejected anyhow. You'll rarely get rejected, but it's based on your profile, your mix, your credit mix. Who are you owing? Are you paying your stuff on time? Do you have late payments? And you always got to check those late payments. You always got to check your payments. Make sure you're paying your stuff on time. Very, very important, because it sits with you. If you got a late payment from 6 years ago, it's going to sit. It's going to sit. It's going to stay on your credit bureau report the whole time. But you got to look at your credit bureau report as a whole, right? And when we talk about the dates, the date of last payment is so important. And unfortunately, the credit bureaus, they're tricky. They're sneaky. Everybody says, oh, they're there to help you. They're there to help you. Well, they're there to help themselves. They are not a non-for-profit entity. Keep that in mind. The credit bureaus are not a non-profit entity. They're for profit, yo. They are totally for profit. They have businesses that pay a membership fee so that they can access your reports, and that they can report on, they can make comments on your report, and that they can inquire, which ends up on your report. And then they make money off of you too. So they eat at both ends. They make money off of the consumer as well. So keep that in mind, right? Just keep that in mind. So when I looked at Equifax specifically, they made some changes to the GUI, to the graphic user interface, to the way the layout and stuff like that. They made some changes, and when I went in to look at it, I noticed some of the verbiage was different, where things were different. But remember how I told you the date of last payment is really, really important, and that's what you need to look for. Well, when I was looking at an old report, an old credit bureau report, it was so interesting. I noticed a couple of differences. Yeah, so here's what I noticed. They used to give you so much information on the old setup. So I'm just reading it now because I actually took a screenshot. I took a screenshot of the way it used to be. And it would say, like, so under the collection section, for example, they said a collection account under public records will automatically purge from the system 6 years from the date of last activity. See? Date of last activity means the last time that you paid money to this account. The last time you paid money on that account that has been canceled or written off and sent to a collection agency or purchased by a collection agency. And what happens is they're no longer, the original creditor, they're no longer reporting on that account, okay? They're no longer reporting on that account. Well, it depends, right? Depending on whether they've licensed the collection duties of that account out to a third party, in which they're still in tandem and still in working together, and that's contingency debt. Or if they've sold it off completely and they have nothing to do with it, and the collection agency owns that debt, so they will be the ones updating their particular item that's in collections, maybe not what's in the history section of your credit bureau report. Okay, so what that means is, here, the other items that they have is they have date assigned, they have the collection agency's name, they have the amount, and they have the date of last payment, and they have date verified. They also have the account number, and they have the reason, and they have balance amount, and they have date paid. So there's a lot more information that is currently there. When you pull up Equifax, they've made it sort of prettier, I guess, and they've taken a lot of the verbiage out of it, so it's kind of confusing. So what's really interesting is what I see now. So when you look at when I look at the credit bureau report now through Equifax, the things that I see are, hold on a second, they have first delinquency. They call it first delinquency. The first delinquency actually means the same thing as date of last payment. Hardly makes sense, right? Make it make sense. It's so confusing. So when you see first delinquency, that means the date that you first defaulted, or the date that you first missed a payment, or the date that they've recorded when you stopped paying or missed a payment, or allegedly missed a payment. So if you allegedly missed a payment on December the 1st, then December the 1st would be your date of last payment, or the last time they received, I shouldn't say that. So it's the date they last received money from you. Okay, I shouldn't say missed payment. The last time you paid money, that's what they're recording. So the date of last payment is the last time you paid money and they received it and they acknowledged it. So when they say first delinquency, that really doesn't make much sense. See, I even confused myself because first delinquency is not technically, like, it's not the date of last payment. It's when they missed your last payment. So technically it would be the month after that. But anyhow, this is how they try to get you, right? This is how they confuse you. So you're concerned with the last time that they received money from you. They say they received money from you. So if they say they received money from you in 2017 rather, then you know, counting 6 years forward, that whatever the item is, it should be dropping off. If it's not on your credit bureau report, if it is on your credit, well, if it's not on your credit bureau report, they can keep calling you. Keep that in mind. They can keep calling you, but they have no legal recourse against you because it's past the statute of limitations. And there's a statute of limitations for certain debt, right? So depending on what your debt is, you have to also keep that in mind, right? If it has to do with taxes, if it's student loans, you gotta pay that. They can come at you for that. Divorce and alimony stuff, that's court stuff. They can come after you for that. Child support stuff, yep, they can still come after you for that. Pretty much any government loan stuff. Government loan stuff is tricky. Very tricky. So keep that in mind. The kind of debt that you allegedly owe. Right? We don't really, sometimes what happens is you'll have a debt and you're looking at it and you're like, well, can I get this removed? Do I owe this debt? Should I pay it? Shouldn't I pay it? Well, I'm going to go back and say it depends on what you're doing, right? Is it your goal to buy a house? Are you just trying to freshen up your credit score? What is your immediate credit need? Okay? If it's urgent, then you have to do a credit analysis and figure out, okay, what can go from what can't go, what is the easiest thing to remove, or what is the easiest thing to deal with. Just note that whenever you pay something down and it doesn't get removed right away, it's just going to be updated as paid, but the derogatory, the stink of it, the black eye of it is still going to be on your report. So I've got to stress this enough because some of you guys actually reach out to me and you ask me questions, some of you call me or what have you, and that's cool. I mean, I know sometimes the information, the way it's related, it's never a blanket for everyone's situation. Everyone has a different situation. And I totally get that and totally understand that. But the principles are pretty much straightforward. And I just want you guys to get an idea of what you should be looking at when you're on your credit bureau report. Some of the first things that you should take a look at. Some of the things that you should look at secondary, like, when was the debt? When was it posted? When was the last posting? When was the last payment? Is it even your debt? Do you have any recollection of having an account with said company? And when's the last time you dealt with said company, if at all? Is this fraud? Is this identity theft? You know what I mean? And they make it even harder. The credit bureaus even make it harder for you to deal with them. They say that they don't, but they actually do. With COVID, they weren't accepting letters. I got a dispute letter sent back to me saying, oh, it's missing the dispute form. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They said, oh yeah, because of COVID, you need to fill out this dispute form and submit it with your documentation. And then they were saying that I had to fill out a dispute form online. So that was a whole other thing too. But we can get into that in another video. But I hope you found some of the information I provided you with today valuable. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. Please like and share and check out one of my other videos. All right? Thanks for watching. Have a good one.